The countdown going on right now. Morrow up to Schultz. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles?
Welcome to the Morning Skate.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Skate. We have a special guest today. He's from Burnaby, British Columbia. He's a two-time Calder Cup champion and World Junior champion. He was drafted 5th overall in the 2007 NHL draft by the Washington Capitals and played 9 years in DC, accumulating 686 games played. It's been a pleasure watching his whole career as a Caps fan. Welcome to the Morning Skate, Karl Alzner. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. How about you?
It's awesome. Got done with the school day. Been waiting for this chance to interview for a while, so it's great to have you on.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. It's fun. I've been enjoying doing a lot of podcast stuff lately, so it's fun to, I guess, take the opportunity to talk a little bit more candidly than you would typically with interviews and TV and stuff like that. So I've really taken a liking to podcasting.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll touch on that later in the interview, but it's pretty cool that seeing how past hockey guys getting back into the podcasting game, talking about the sport they love and just following teams that they played for and whatnot, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like like players are a lot more willing to chat, on something like this. That seems a little bit more informal, right? So it's easy to ask someone to come on somewhere and talk for 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, right? I think the Chicklets guys have kind of really paved the way for a lot of people to get some inside info on a lot of people in the hockey world, and it seems made things just a little bit easier now.
It's always good about talking about things you like to talk about, especially like a sport like hockey. So for your career, what age did you get into hockey, and did you play any other sports growing up?
Yeah, well, I think I was like a lot of kids that really love hockey at a young age. 4 years old is when I first started playing. I can still remember the first time I was on the ice, like with full gear and all that stuff. I remember the kid, Mark Santorelli, played a little bit in the American League and over in Europe, and then his brother Mike played a little bit in the league with Nashville and stuff. So I still remember seeing Mark out there going, end to end, stopping, spraying snow everywhere, and I was standing there crying with my hand my arm covering my eyes as much as possible. So it's funny, that was my intro into hockey, which is exactly the same way my 6-year-old started playing too, being out there crying, covering his face. So hopefully it works out the same as it did for me. But I was and I still am very much into playing everything, doing whatever you can, whatever your interest is, and even sometimes what you're not all that interested in, just to give it a chance, right? So I played lacrosse, I played soccer, I played tons of basketball. Baseball was probably the sport that I was best at, but ended up having to make my decision baseball over hockey just because of the position that I played. I was the catcher playing baseball, and I just didn't like it. I know a lot of people love catcher, but I just wanted to play third base. And so when it came down to choosing sports, that was hockey was the direction I went. I played rugby. That lasted one game because I broke my finger, showed up at hockey practice that night with my finger in a splint, and my coach that made me choose between rugby and hockey as well. So I played them all, and I think that's a good way to do it, because then you're not just a one sport athlete. You can take bits and pieces from everything. Like I think soccer is a great example. You get great coordination. I think you become a little bit lighter on your feet, quicker. Baseball, obviously, great hand-eye. I think lacrosse is the exact same for that. So there's bits and pieces that you can take from all sports. So I tried to be as versatile as possible, and I try and preach that as well whenever anyone asks me now.
Which is always good to have, especially you guys said you got some youngins coming up, and I'm sure that you're going to have them play. You got them running all over the place playing as many sports as they can, I'm sure, to see what they like and don't like.
Absolutely. I push golf really, really hard because I think then I can play more golf. So we're working
Perfect
on that.
excuse.
Absolutely. I try and drag him out there whenever I can. But yeah, right now, like my son, the 6-year-old, he loves pretty much everything, but he likes to do everything informally. He doesn't necessarily want to be on a team. He wants to mess around, in the basement or in the yard and do that, which is fine. My daughter, she's older. She's more artsy and sporty, but she's taken a liking to baseball, which is fun. And then my little guy, he wants to play everything and do everything. He's only 3 though, so he can't really be signed up for anything besides t-ball. So we'll see how that goes. But the only one that I'll push on them is golf. The rest of them, they can choose.
That's awesome. Love that. So when you obviously you decided on hockey, what as your sport of choice, what were some people that you looked up to and tried to emulate your game after when you were watching hockey growing up?
Well, so I grew up in Vancouver, so I was a Canucks fan. I was also a Leafs fan. And so I'd say when I was younger, I really loved Doug Gilmour. I thought his game was awesome to watch. He was, the killer. He was just a really exciting player. And then when I started to get more into a defenseman role, I liked someone like Dave Babish, who maybe people won't know, but for number 44, big mustache for the Canucks. Just kind of a solid defenseman. I thought that the game was exciting to watch because it was simple and, I like to call it flawless, because it wasn't glaring. There weren't any glaring issues. It was just play the game smart, play the game hard. And then when I got a little bit older, I think the 2 main ones for most people my age are Nick Lidstrom and Scott Niedermayer, and different players. I love Niedermayer because it was so far from how I played the game as a defenseman that I thought it was really, really cool. He loved to mix it up in the offensive zone, just an effortless skater from British Columbia as well. So that's kind of why I chose number 27. And then Nick Lidstrom because a different type of
Oh, there you go.
I lost you there.
Yeah, you're good. I got you back.
All right. Sorry. A little
No
internet weather. We got bad weather here right now. Are you in the DC area?
No, I'm actually in Arizona. I live in Arizona.
Oh yeah, you said. I'm sorry, I forgot that.
My dad's side is in Virginia.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've been getting absolutely pounded today with rain. If we were like in Celsius, if we were 5 degrees colder, we'd be having a great snowstorm right now.
Yeah, I was just in Buffalo the other day, and I was hoping the flight didn't get late. Luckily, it didn't. But we were getting some snow in Buffalo before I flew back to Arizona.
Oh, really? Actually, that was probably part of the part of that hurricane, right? That was coming through and then turned cold and ended up getting. I think so. Yeah, because we were in Florida for when that was happening, and we thought we were going to get stuck there too. But well, it was my first tropical storm. It was interesting.
Yeah, just cross that off the bucket list and get out of there and try not to experience that again.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we were lucky that it wasn't so bad. It was more just interesting to look at.
So that was those main guys that you emulated off your game after. Is there like one specific thing from them that you like just watching back in your career, like you noticed that you did more from those guys that you played with? Or not played with, emulated your game after?
Yeah, I think that I always was impressed with how players were willing to block shots. It might sound a little silly, but it takes. So my daughter wants to say hi really quick. Okay, yeah. Say hi. There you go. All right. I told her she had to bring down the hot glue gun. She's been doing a lot of art lately, so I'm making sure she's okay. You can go ahead now. Okay, I love you, Stell. Good night. Sorry about that.
No worries. I'm a teacher. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's been big into art, and actually, she brought home a bunch of seashells from Florida, and so she was making a little a pot for her teacher. So, anyways, yeah. So I was always impressed by by players that were willing to sacrifice and block shots. I thought that was really cool, especially as like a younger kid. You see someone getting hit with a puck that's coming super hard. You're kind of like, whoa, that guy's nuts. Like, why the heck would he do that, right? And so I always thought that would be something I'd like to do. I think the thing I was most impressed by was, when I got to really pay close attention to Nick Lidstrom and see his positioning. Everyone always kept saying that he's always in the right spot. He's just so smooth in the D zone, and trying to figure out exactly what they meant by that. What does it mean to always be in the right spot? And I started to notice, especially when you understand the system that your team has in place and where you're supposed to be on the ice, that you could be in the right spot, and then the player that you were guarding would never get the puck, and then you didn't even really have to play one-on-one. It was just,
Right.
It was just put yourself there. It's like, if you watch football, a good corner, someone who's on the receiver, the quarterback just doesn't throw the ball there because they're in the right spot. So I kind of wanted to do that as a defenseman and make sure that they didn't have the opportunity to touch the puck. And so that's kind of what I took from what Nick Lidstrom did. And then when they did get the puck, obviously great stick. That's one of the things he was really known for. So those were some of the pieces I like to take. I mean, the way I played the game, I couldn't really take anything from Scott Niedermayer, so I just kind of enjoyed watching and watch some of the other good offensive players do their thing in the league as I was coming up too.
Well, I mean, obviously it worked for how long of a career you had in the NHL, so you must have did something right, copying some of the greats.
You know what? I always joke that it was like, I almost felt like I was like sneaking through year by year, just like doing things that were so simple. And it's like, why doesn't everybody just do these things? Because, it is just that simple. And then you're like, somebody's going to figure it out that all I'm doing is being in the right spot with a good stick and playing hard, blocking shots. But, I got away with it for 12 years. So I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, we'll take it, right?
Absolutely.
I know I appreciate it as a Caps fan watching you, so there were many times hearing your name in a negative sense, and at least when I was watching.
Yeah, well, and that's it, right? Like, just wanted to play the game simple, and the type of game that I played, it's the least amount of times that your name gets said is better, right? Like I didn't need to ever, unless I was on the score sheet, I didn't need to ever have anyone know that I was in the game, right? I wanted people to, the next day be like, oh, Sidney Crosby didn't get any points last night, or Claude Giroux was held off the score sheet. That means that I probably had a decent game, right? So that was
Exactly.
So a good game for me was them talking about the other team's best players not doing something. So it was, it was an interesting way to play it. And the people, that understand that style of game really appreciate it, and that was cool.
That's awesome. So, starting like back to the beginning of your career, when you got your first like big contract where you're like, wow, I made it. Was there anything like special you treated yourself to, like when you got that contract?
Well, our team was funny. We had a lot of like shitheads on our team. That's a good way to put it. Like guys that just like to chirp you for anything and everything. I would have loved to have seen what other teams were like and just hear some of the stuff that was said. But you were getting chirped about everything. And so one of the things that was important was to get a nice suit, right? I got a nice suit for my draft year that I ended up actually blowing the pants out completely because I had two dog toys in my pocket. After one of my first games I was called up for, and I went to go pick up the dog and just completely like spiderwebbed the back of the pants. And so I had a nice suit, and so I wanted to get another one of those. So I remember going to the mall with some of the other call ups, and they were all looking at these Hugo Boss things, and they were like $700, $800, $900, and I'm just like I'm not sure that I'm ready for that yet. And so my first big purchase, believe it or not, was a keychain from a jewelry store called David Yurman. It was, I think, $230 or $300 for a keychain. And I'm like, you know what? This seems like a good price. Like, let's do that. And looking back on it, it's like, who the heck spends $230 or $300 on a keychain? Nobody. No one smart, at least. And I still have it, but it was like my big purchase, like, wow, I can do this now. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. I eventually did get some suits. It ended up being a thing. Like, you didn't want to come to the rink and someone be like, oh, why are you wearing that horse blanket today? So I had to make sure that it was a nice suit. And so that would probably be when I did actually start spending any money. It was mainly on dress clothes.
That's awesome. That's cool that you still have it too. A little like thing based on your career. Like, oh yeah, I remember that's I got a good story behind it. I bought a keychain instead, even though I blew the pants out of my suit.
Exactly. It was my memento. Yeah. And it's funny, when I did eventually buy my first like really nice suit, I still have it. Like I still wear it whenever there's something special going on. And so that's the same thing. Like I try and take care of my big purchases. I try and take care of. And so that suit still in my closet, still in the rotation. I'd say it's 1A or 1B. So yeah, I try and bring it out whenever I can.
That's awesome. So you had a pretty long NHL career. Now I know it says on your Instagram officially not retired. So door's still open. Is that correct?
I mean, honestly, I feel like it's been too long where I can even come out and say that I'm officially retired, right? Because it's like,
right.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that I'm not going to be coming back to play. I am only 34. I don't have any lingering injuries. Could I come back and play? Yeah, maybe, but it would take me quite a while to get into a game shape. But I don't really have the desire to come back and play right now. I after COVID and spending whatever it was, like 8 or 9 months straight at home, I was just kind of, I was just happy. I didn't have to worry about prepping for anything. I could enjoy all the holidays, and after that, I was like, you know what, I'm done. Like I thought about it for a sec. When Joel Ward actually, when he was the assistant coach there in, still is for Henderson, Silver Knights, and he asked me if I'd come back and play, and I was kind of like, if Wardo's my coach, maybe. So I was close, but we had just moved back to DC at the time, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to start the next phase of life here, so let's not do it. So yeah, I'm unofficially officially retired, I guess you could say.
Gotcha. Well, my question on top of that was, what is one of your proudest accomplishments as a hockey player? Could be NHL, could be AHL, high school, juniors, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think I'm most proud of some of the longevity I had playing the game. Being able to play as many games as I did, even though 1,000 is always the goal, I think, for most players. And I didn't get there, but the fact that I was able to play whatever it ended up being, just over 600 straight games, I'm pretty proud about that. I've always wanted to battle as hard as possible and be in the lineup all the time, so that was important to me. And then winning is always great. So winning, even though it was Calder Cups and it wasn't Stanley Cups, winning 2 of those was amazing. Winning 2 World Juniors is something that I will remember absolutely forever. And I still get lots of questions about that quite often. So those 4 wins would probably be right up there with being able to play as many games as I ended up playing.
That's awesome. And funny enough, my next question was, so you spent most of your career as a Capital and you hardly missed a game. So you had 622 consecutive games played from 2010 and 2018, which is 13th on the all-time list. Now, doing something that much without missing a day is impressive on its own, let alone you did it in the NHL. So was there a time during that stretch where you were injured and you battled through it? Because you had to have been at least somewhat nicked up during that stretch.
Yes. Oh yeah. There's tons. I was lucky that a lot of them were, they were injuries, but they weren't ones that you couldn't play through. My injuries were pain tolerance injuries. So, I didn't ever have to deal with a broken leg, or a broken arm, right? Where you shouldn't play through anything like that, or probably can't play through anything like that. They were broken hands, broken fingers, strained obliques, pulled muscles, things like that. So those things are more or less just pain tolerance. And so, I remember one time in particular, I blocked a shot named David Desharnais, took a slapper, hit me in the hand, broke my thumb, pretty good break. And then we played a day or two later in Winnipeg. And because I didn't have, much movement with didn't really have much strength with my top hand, I have to shoot and pass a little bit more with my bottom hand, which is not something that I'm really used to. And I remember trying to whip a puck up, like a kind of a stretch pass. And then that's when, I strained like little micro tears in my oblique. And I'm just like, what are the chances that, 2 days back to back, this happens? And so I went through a stretch of probably, a week and a half there where I was, every game was pretty challenging to get through. But eventually you see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and then you're able to kind of push through at that point. So I'd say that I had some moments, but nothing crazy. Honestly, the ones that are the hardest are the times when you're sick. When you have the flu, like those are the ones that suck. Like I had one time where I woke up in the middle of the night in Chicago and I was puking. I felt terrible. I slept maybe 30 minutes all night. And, most of the time you'd be like, it's okay. I'll sleep all day, and I'll feel good by game time. That game was an 11 a.m. start for some reason that next day, so it's like, I didn't even have time to build towards the game. It was just right there as soon as you wake up. So I'd say those were the harder ones, but it's so common that guys have things like that. It's just whether or not they are allowed to play through it or want to play through it. And I was lucky that I was allowed to play through a lot of that stuff.
Well, that's an awesome accomplishment. And now, like on top of that too, do you think like by you not missing any games during that stretch, did that you think that motivated your teammates at all, or like someone had a lingering injury and they're like, well, Carl's not, or he's not sitting out, so I'm gonna play. Kind of vibes in the locker room like that.
I'm not sure if that went through anybody's head. No one ever really said anything, but it definitely went through my head where if I saw somebody with a pulled hip flexor or whatever, and they were playing, it was like, what, okay, I'm going to do this. Like I remember Brooks had a second degree MCL sprain or something like that. And he had played a bunch of games in a row at the time. And he had a brace on and he was out there just testing it out. And I'm like, what's this guy doing? Like, obviously he can't skate. Like, it's not going to work. And sure enough, he played in the game and everything seemed to be okay. And I'm just like, okay, like if Brooks is going to play through this MCL sprain, then, I got to play through some stuff too. Cause that's the level, right? That was the bar that was set. And so, the thing that was unfortunate for me in injuries is my big ones that I did get happened in the playoffs, and that's like, I would have rather missed all the regular season games for them not to happen when they did happen. And they happened the 2 years when we had probably the two best teams that we had while I was in DC. And so, it was just unfortunate timing. And that does happen too. So yeah, I'm proud of how it went, not proud of how it ended, healthy scratch, but that is how a lot of these things end. But yeah, it was still a pretty good run.
Well, like I said, that's a great accomplishment. Most people can't get to their jobs for that long, and let alone you did in the NHL. So that's awesome.
Maybe it's more fun. It's more fun in the NHL than the regular job.
I would say. So back to your career too. You were able to play in a couple of Winter Classic games. Which venue had the best experience? And on top of that, I think you were the first person to wear sunglasses under your visor during the game, which was all-time look. I don't think anybody has emulated it since, but it was all-time picture. When I think of you, that picture is at the top of the list of pictures of you.
That's funny. And actually, what one person has, and it was Grubauer. So I think he did it the last game they played, Tahoe. Did they play Tahoe?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Gruby did it after that, so it was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't see anything, and that eye black doesn't work. The tinted visors don't work, and so I I had to do something if I wanted to see what was going on the ice. So that was that. So the games I played in Pittsburgh at Heinz Field. It was rainy, but it was the first one that I played in, and it was the first year HBO followed a team. So that was really cool and really memorable. And that was the one that when Steckel hit Crosby. So also, a pretty memorable game for a lot of people, but not in a good way. Then the next one was at home against Chicago, and that one was really, really fun. Came down to the wire, power play goal, I think, to seal it in the end. And then I played one with Montreal against Ottawa, and we just got roasted. We were bad that year, so it was not a very fun experience. So I would say the best one was the one in Washington all around, because we won the game. It was a cool venue. It was at home, had tons of friends and family there. So I'd say the one in DC was the best one. Weather was warm, but it was sunny. It wasn't rainy. So yeah, I'd say that was pretty good.
I'll say my two cousins that got me into being a Caps fan, JR and Andrew, they were at the Pittsburgh game, and they said it was miserable weather at the beginning, but you guys ended up winning, so that made everything worth it at the end, sitting and with all the Pittsburgh fans in Heinz Field.
Absolutely, and it was delayed too. I think they pushed the game back and everything. So yeah, it was pretty miserable for everybody involved. But yeah, when you win, you forget about some of the bad stuff.
Exactly. So you obviously spent most of your years at DC, and it ended in your last season where you went to Montreal. Was that like a bittersweet moment for you? And what was one thing about DC that you knew you were going to miss most about going to Montreal?
Oh man, it was. I don't even know that it was bittersweet. I think it was more like bitter. I know bitter medium maybe, because I mean we didn't want to leave DC at all. We knew that it was home. We loved all the people that were part of the organization. Tons of friends we made we made outside of the team as well. So it was hard. Like, when we went in to say bye, and I'm saying bye to the community relations team and the lady who runs the front desk at the practice rink, and I'm just like tearing up, and I'm like, holy smokes. Like, I think that's when you start to really realize how important all these people are, is when you actually have to say bye, and realizing just how much we loved everything about the organization. That was extremely challenging. So yeah, it was nice to have a 5-year contract and all that, but was it worth leaving the place that you knew everything about? Definitely not. And I think everybody knows now that I definitely wasn't what the plan was. So it kind of just ended up happening. So, go back and do it differently. I'd love to try to do it differently, but either way, I don't think it was possible. But what was nice was seeing the team, even though I wasn't a part of it, see them finally get over the hump of the second round and take everything home. Like, that was, if anybody were to be able to relate, it was me and Marcus Johansson and Jason Chimera and all these guys that have been through that grind for so many years and weren't able to do it, and to finally see it, like, I even just making it past the second round was a massive accomplishment. and how happy it was to see how happy the guys were on the ice.
I say, as a fan, I know how it made me feel. I can't even imagine how it made those guys feel, and even like you being a lot closer to the team than I can even imagine.
Yeah, well, even Taylor Chorney, right? Like, he was there for a few years, and then they let him go at the deadline, right? Like, a deadline deal is even worse than in the summer. So, there was there's a lot that goes into building the team, right? And it's not just that team that year, although that is obviously the main thing. But yeah, there's so much that happens in the buildup, and the hardening of players, mental game, just to be able to withstand a grind like that. So you still feel like you're a bit of a part of it, but it happens every year. Every year someone leaves a team and their team wins, right? And it was just our turn that year.
Well, I mean, like, on top of that relationship you had with those guys, I know before we hopped on, you said you got together with Mike Green and Braden Holtby. Are those two main guys, or like who are some guys from your time in DC that you're still close with?
Well, we had a pretty tight group. We called ourselves the Chums. We were a group of guys that came up through Hershey together. And that was Matthew Perot, Eric Fair, John Carlson, Jay Beagle, Braden Holtby, and then Tom Wilson joined the Chums as an honorary member when he came to the team. So we were really, really tight while we played. We did almost everything together. We had all the inside jokes and stuff together. So we spent a ton of time hanging out. I say of that whole group, I talked to Braden and Eric Fair the most now. Braden because he moved back here, and then Carly's still playing, so it's tougher with the schedule and all that. But I'd say those are the guys that I kept most in touch with, and now Mike Green is also back. So I had a good chat with Joel Ward. I don't even know, maybe 5 months ago, and he asked me. He's like, "Hey, so are you hanging out with all the guys? Like, what do you guys do? Dinner like once a month, or what is it?" And I'm like, honestly, like, no, the schedule's just nuts, and it's so hard to see everyone. And then he cuts me off. He's like, no, stop right there. He's like, these are guys that you've just been to war with, and now you're in the same city. It should be standard dinner once a month. You guys got to hang out. Like, it's just mandatory. And I laughed, and I'm like, you know what? You're kind of right. Like you should get together and just be able to like relive some of those moments, or just continue to keep the bond going. But it's part of the hockey world too, right? Guys, you grow apart. You still have a connection when you see each other, but yeah, everybody goes their separate ways, and they stay busy with different things. So now that Mike isn't playing, Braden isn't playing, and we all have a little bit of extra time on our hands, I think it's important that we continue to stay in touch and help each other out whichever way we can, and relive some of the moments.
Yeah, make a couple good golf trips here and there. I'm sure that won't hurt either.
Yes, that would be nice. We haven't gotten around to that yet, but eventually we'll get there. We all got young kids, so it is hard to sneak away for a golf trip, but we'll find time to do something, I'm sure.
Well, if you ever do have time and can make it out here for the Waste Management, it's a trip. So, and I'm sure you've had people tell you about it, but it's a spectacle, more the ways than one.
Absolutely, you're right. I have heard a lot of people tell me that, say it's been an awesome experience. We actually played, is that TBC Scottsdale, right? We played that course,
the Champions course.
Yeah, when we were in town one year, it was a few weeks before the tournament, I think. So the grandstands were up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I made par on that par 3 off the grandstand back onto the green. So it was kind of nice that it was set up the way it was, but we'll have to find a way to get out there. There's lots of things. I mean, I've always wanted to go to Augusta and watch the Masters. There's just so many things to do, right? It's hard to find time to do them all, and got a lifetime to get it all in. Don't need to do it all in 1 year.
I'll say, one day you could just go with your kids. That'll be a cool dad moment for you.
Well,
and perfect excuse to make a trip.
Well, yes, absolutely. And they know that they are my ticket to Augusta by getting into the drive, chip and putt. So
there you go.
See. No pressure though.
That's awesome. So back to guys you played with, did you have a favorite teammate? I know, when you're rookies, you have your guy, the guy you stay with in the room on road trips and stuff. Did you have a specific person like that on your teams or the teams you played on?
So when I first started, Jay Beagle was my roommate. We were roomies in Hershey, and then a little bit in Washington. We were in the hotel together 1 year for, I think it was 30 days. So we spent a lot of time together in the American League because we were, we wanted so badly to get out of there and get to the NHL that we were doing anything possible. We would get to road cities, and we'd drop our bags down, and we'd quickly change, and we'd start doing workouts in the room. We'd pick up the dresser, we'd be doing shrugs with it, push up pyramids, all this stuff. So we had a great time. And then a lot of these American League cities don't have a ton to do, so we'd find the nearest Dick's Sporting Goods. We'd go over there and we'd test out all the clubs. We'd get in the simulator and just find something to do. Right? We were on the same page with a lot of that stuff. So we spent a ton of time together, especially in the early days. And then Carly was my roommate for the first little bit in Washington. So we spent a boatload of time together there. And then obviously we were D partners too. So that was kind of a natural fit. And so like I said, the chums were my guys that we spent a lot of time with. We had another really good group towards the end of my time in Washington, where and I think this part of the game is kind of lost a little bit now. I'm sure there's still some teams that have it, but we would get to whatever road city it was, and we had our spots in every city, but we would drop our bags down. You'd get like 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the hotel, and then we met in the lobby, like 9 of us, and we'd go straight to our spot, our pub or beer garden, where depending on the city that we were in, and we'd go and have a few beers, and then we'd go for dinner, whoever wanted to go for dinner. And if they didn't, they'd go back and order room service. And then we just did that every single time. So, we had a couple guest appearances every now and then from some of the guys that weren't as into it as us, but, it just ended up, made the road so much fun, because we were always looking forward to our hangout whenever we got to a city. We got to talk about whatever. It just ended up being a really, really cool thing. And, I don't think it happens nearly as much. I don't think guys go on the road to drink, to have as many,
not.
didn't have as many beers as we did. We had Jason Chimera, who was, he was born in the 70s, old school guy. So he was, he instilled that in a lot of us. So he was one of the ringleaders. And same thing with Matt Niskanen. So, we had a good crew that would do that. So I don't think they do that. We didn't really do that in Montreal when I was there, which was sad, I thought. But yeah, so we ended up having a great group. If I was naming someone just because of what they did for the team, how they were as a person and all that, the top 3 would be probably Nick Backstrom, TJ Oshie, Tom Wilson. Those guys just did a little bit of everything, really, really helped the team out in different ways, and very inclusive, which I think is very important on a team. Having someone that's always thinking about, making sure everybody's accounted for, I guess, right? Like, that's guys can get forgotten about, even though you're on the same team, you're playing in the NHL. Guys don't necessarily get invited out to dinners and, to do something away from the rink or whatever it may be. And then, next thing you know, they're part of the team, but they're not really part of the team. I thought those guys were pretty good at getting everybody on the same page.
That's awesome that you guys did that. I mean, it showed, just those names alone, those names don't surprise me at all as the guys that were sticking in your head of being those great teammates on and off the ice. So that's good to hear that as a fan, that it's the same as you see them on the ice, as that's how they are off the ice.
Yeah, well, and there's more too. I mean, like Matt Hendricks is another guy. Yeah. He was one of the, I probably should name him in that group as well, because he was different than those guys. But he's what TJ is now. You see TJ, getting everybody fired up with the handshakes and energy and all that.
Taps.
Yeah, and that was Hendy. Hendy did that with everybody before the game. He legit tapped every single person in the room before the game, said something to them, had a good time, made us all laugh, and but there just weren't as many cameras around, so no one got to see it as much, right? And so Hendy was also that guy, but he was, what you would call a fourth line player, so doesn't necessarily get the attention that someone like TJ would or Tom would, right? So it's just different. Exactly. But Hendy is, all time beauty. Anytime you say that guy's name around to anyone in the league, like they instantly start smiling and laughing, because he's the original wagon. That's what everyone called him. So yeah, he's just a really, really great guy.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So as a diehard Caps fan, I have to ask, is there any good OV stories that you're able to share? I know there's some I'm sure you can't share, but from the crossing of the sauces to the Dr. Pepper on the bench, any other good ones that you can share?
I mean, there's tons. Let me think. The 2 that really stick out to me that I can say are, and I think it's been documented. I think James Duffy put it in his book, and it was after we talked about it, where at one point when Dale Hunter was the coach, and he called Ovi and Semen plumbers because they weren't scoring. They called them plumbers, and Ovi didn't understand what a plumber was. And so what Dale meant by a plumber is, someone who is a grinder. That's what he was saying, right? He told him, he said, dump the puck in. You're a plumber right now, so go out there and plumb. So anyways, he leaves. Ovi asks, like, what does he mean? What is plumber? And so we explained to him that a plumber is, someone that, fixes the toilet, with the plunger. And you could see like, oh, okay. So next day at practice, he shows up and he takes the plunger from the bathroom and he tapes it to his stick. And he comes out on the ice with it taped to his stick and does the first drill with it on there. And it was so funny because, like, you have Dale on one hand, who is, he wasn't, but by no means was he mean, but he was scary. And so you didn't really want to do that to him. And then you have Ovi, who pretty much runs the team on the other hand. So it was kind of like head to head, like who do you cheer for, right? It was a really weird situation. So I thought that was a standout for me. And then another one that was funny is we had a rookie party in Fort Lauderdale, and I don't know why it was funny. It was kind of weird, I guess, but Ovi just loves Bud Lights. That's his beer of choice. Like, everybody's got their beer, right? I like Coors Lights or Yellow Jackets. He likes Bud Lights. And so we're at the restaurant that we were at, and he asked them for some Bud Lights, and they said, "Oh, is Miller Lite okay?" or whatever it was. And he kind of did the face like, no, like only Bud Lights. So I can't remember which rookie it was, but he starts right away like, "Hey, so-and-so, go to the CVS and get me some Bud Lights." And so it was like in the middle of the guy's rookie party, like get up and go get a 12er of Bud Light, comes back, and Ovi asks for was it like the champagne bucket that has ice in it, and opens up his Bud Lights and puts them in the champagne bucket, like at the restaurant. Like, never seen anything like it before. His own booze brought into the restaurant because he didn't like it. And it was, it was funny. It was really funny. But at the same time, it's like, you just don't do that. But Ovi could get away with a few extra things because, some of those guys can.
That's awesome. So if you didn't play in the NHL, what do you think would have done instead?
It's a hard question.
I feel like professional golfer would have been on top of your list, but if you were doing a normal job like me, what do you think you'd have been doing?
Well, it's interesting though, because at that age, like, if I would have had to make a decision when I was 20, 21, 22, whatever it would be, like, I wasn't that into golf, right? I didn't get my first set of clubs until I signed my first pro contract, just because golf is expensive, as you know. It's hard to play. So if you ask me now, I would say, yeah, I'd try and be a pro golfer, but at that time, I was really into things like physiotherapy. I had a pretty significant back injury actually while I was in Hershey, before I was with the Caps, that almost held me out the season that I was my first season that I was full time. So I was into things like that. So I always said that maybe some sort of physiotherapist. I used to always say lawyer, probably because that's just what people say. I'm not sure that it is something that I would do, but now that I'm out of hockey and taking a dive into some other things, maybe something in sales. From what I keep understanding more and more is, it's kind of a people person industry, right? Being able to socialize and talk with people and try and find ways to relate to them. So maybe something in sales right from the get-go.
That'd be cool. I'm sure being that you're in DC, I don't think if Karl Alzner comes knocking on the door to work in their department, they're going to say no, or they'll at least give you a shot. Well,
what's funny is, like, I do actually, I work for a tech company now called Thundercat Technology, which is actually, I just realized I have the sweater on. And in the meeting that we had today, the guy had said he checked his calendar and saw that he was meeting with Thundercat and looked at all the people on the invite list and saw my name. So he thought it was a joke that someone was just messing around. And then I was on the call. And so he's like, I have to bring this up. Like, I was not expecting this at all. And he told me a funny story about his kid getting an autograph and stuff. So yeah, it is kind of funny. And that's what my buddy hired me at this company. And he said, his exact words were, people will enjoy an email coming from your name way more than they'll enjoy it coming from my name. And I'm like, apparently, I guess you're right. Yeah, I never
Kind of
really
using
thought
you as a
about it.
Trojan horse at this point.
A little bit, yeah. We'll see if it works out in the long run. But it's been pretty interesting to learn so far.
That's awesome. Well, besides hockey, I know you still follow the Caps a little bit. What are some other sports you like to watch, and what are the teams that you support?
Well, so I got into fantasy football. I think it was the last year that I was with Washington. So it was, I think, around 2017. And I got into it just because, like, that's the only conversations that were happening at the rink. And I was so sick of it. I'm like, these guys are talking about football and fantasy and sports betting and all this stuff. And I have no idea what they mean, what they're saying. So I'm like, I just have to dive right into it. So I got into that pretty heavily. So now I don't watch football games as much, but I pay pretty close attention to my to my players and the teams that I've made up. So I'd say I'm fairly into football. If I had to choose a team, I'd probably choose the Seattle Seahawks. However, I feel like I want to cheer for Buffalo just because I feel like Buffalo needs something. Yeah. I want Buffalo to have some sort of win. What doesn't matter if it's football or hockey, whatever. It'll be nice for the city. So I'd say maybe
you might be careful though. They'll burn that place down. I think if they win a Super Bowl, or heck, even if the Sabres make the playoffs, which they could be this year. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the city that I came from almost burnt it down when they lost in the final. So maybe that's what I like. I have no idea. So I'd say that. Like I said, I love golf, so I watch a ton of golf. I'd say my favorite golfer probably, I'd probably still say Jordan Spieth, just because it's just, you never know what you're gonna get, right? Like it's just so entertaining to watch. He's like watching me off the tee, right? Like throwing my hands up every now and then, and maybe it's a good shot, maybe it's a bad shot. You just don't know until you actually see the ball land. So I enjoy watching him play. I'm decently into Formula One. I got on board when the first season of Drive to Survive came out. We did fantasy teams in Laval, so I was into that fairly regularly. It's great because the timing works out perfect. A lot of times I wake up and the race is already on at 9 a.m. So I'd say F1 is in the mix there as well. And then other than that, that's pretty much it. I have baseball season tickets, but I didn't end up going nearly as much as I was expecting to go because it's too darn hot. So I didn't end up doing that, but I do enjoy going to baseball games. So if I were to order it, I'd say, golf is number one. F1 I probably enjoy more, and then football right after that, even though I pay closer attention to fantasy football than anything else.
That's awesome. So I know that it wasn't happening when you were playing, but soon, like maybe a year after, they started implementing goal songs for the guys. So I gotta ask, what would yours be? I know this is, I don't know if you've ever thought of it. What would your goal song have been?
You know what? I haven't ever thought about it, but it is a really, really great question. Because you want something that's like a good sing along that everybody would love to listen to, but it would also be pretty rare that they would play the song. So, it'd be funny if it was like, can't remember who it was. I think it was Matt Irwin. He scored actually at a game that I was at last year, and it was his first goal in a while. Whatever the song was, it was perfect, like absolutely perfect. I don't know, like Osha's Country Roads is what he plays.
Yeah, so good.
It's such a good song. I've always been a huge Wagon Wheel from Old Crow Medicine Show. One of my favorite songs, actually, from the Wagon himself, Matt Hendricks. He was one that introduced us to it back in the day. So that would be up there. But I also love, my favorite song is "I Love a Rainy Night." by Eddie Rabbit. So, maybe that. I have no idea. It's such a hard question because you gotta hit on so many different levels. So
Well, you gotta start thinking
sure.
about it, because if you ever get invited to be the celebrity golfer at TPC, they think they do walkout songs. So you have to start. You have plenty of time to think about it.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. I will. I will. You know what? I honestly, what I love too is one of the things I love most about going to baseball games is hearing what everybody's walk-up songs are, and I love when you get a little Spanish flair. Some of the songs where you can really move the hips to. So maybe it would be something like that and just throw everybody off guard. I'm not sure.
I know that when I was playing baseball, and when we had the freshmen, we chose their songs, and we had like "Pop Goes the Weasel," like stuff like that. Oh, it was comedy. So I get what you're saying with that stuff. I'm surprised they don't do that in the NHL. Make the rookies do that. That'd be hilarious.
That would be good, like a virgin or something like that when they came up. Yeah, it'd be pretty funny. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm gonna think about that. I'll get back to you.
Okay, awesome. And on top of music, so we always ask on the pod when we have guests on, if you could create your own music festival, what would your 3 headlining artists or bands be?
Oh, interesting. I like that. Well, my favorite is Eric Church. I love Eric Church. I think he's a good mix of country and a little rock and roll. So he'd probably be he's my favorite. So I would pick him. And then after that, I'd love to have maybe do it have to be living?
No.
Okay, perfect. Well, then in that case, I'd pick Johnny Cash. He'd also be there. I was trying to teach my son about him last night, playing some of the songs, but I don't think it hasn't taken just yet. So we'll see. But I'd pick Eric Church, Johnny Cash, and you know what? I really do kind of like some of this. I don't even know what you call it. If you call it EDM or what, but there's this one guy, his name's Matoma, and
he's like trancey house.
Yeah, and then he'll mix old school rap, like a Will Smith song or a Dr. Dre or Biggie Smalls or whatever. He'll mix one of those into more of like a instrumental beat, and I really like that stuff. Anytime I hear one of those, it gets me going pretty good. So maybe a weird combo. Probably wouldn't get too many people at the festival, but we do a little Matoma, Eric Church, and Johnny Cash probably.
I'm honestly surprised you didn't say Michael Bublé on that list. I was looking up on Wikipedia, and that was one of the things it said is how he wore your jersey to one of his concerts.
Well, Boobs be like, he'd just be his own thing, right? He's not at a festival. He gets his own show to do what he does. Special. His Christmas special, yeah. He's a hell of an artist. We're both from Burnaby. We play fantasy football together. Beat me last week, actually. Pissed about that. Drop. It's funny. I'm in 4 leagues, and that's the one league that I run, and it's the one I'm by far the worst in. And so I'm not paying close enough attention to that, and I'm going to end up having to do our loser punishment most likely if I keep this up. So anyways, he great musician, great singer, but this is a different kind of festival than what he's putting on, I guess.
What are we talking fantasy football punishment? Because we got some good ones out here that we do.
Ours is the one we have this year is pretty standard. We're going to do the lemonade stand, wearing the costume, a full 9 to 5 shift though. Like it has to be the entire thing, and then the proceeds will go to either a charity of choice or towards next year's pot. I mean, we're kind of up in the air on that.
Yeah. I
think we'll probably end up donating them to something. But you can also buy out. So you can buy out of doing the punishment for $500, which I don't think anyone will buy out of this one, but there were some other ones that were up for choice this year that would have been a buyout 100%. And so we lucked out with probably the easiest one. But what are you guys doing for punishment?
We're right by ASU. So the main strip where all the students go out, we'll go. There's like a Zips. It's like a Buffalo Wild Wings. So we'll have whoever comes in last. I'll stand on the street corner with a honk I suck at fantasy football sign. And we've been slowly adding new things. So this year we're gonna add a clown nose and a tutu to that. And they got to stand out there for like an hour and it's a ride every time. So the main goal is to not come in last place in that, because it's pretty shitty.
Absolutely. Well, a question for you. What I don't know how what's the rating on this podcast? Like, am I allowed to say whatever I want, or is
Oh
things
yeah,
outside?
you can say whatever you want.
So I have a buddy who theirs is so funny. They call it the dick chain, and it's a huge gold chain, and they've attached a massive dildo to it, and the dildo sticks straight out from your chest, and so theirs is the loser has to wear that for the entire day, and they always go on a trip. Yeah, so they go somewhere, wherever it is, Florida or Charleston, wherever they are, and that person has to wear it the entire day wherever they go. And so
That's awesome.
I wanted that so bad, something along those lines, but we're all spread out, and we just can't get everybody together, so we had to opt for something else. But I think that's really, really funny. But also, since you're by ASU, have you been to one of the Coyotes games?
I haven't yet. I actually work at a bar too, and he has season tickets with Frankie Muniz behind the bench. So I've been trying to like grease the wheels to be like, hey, yeah, when are we coming? But I haven't got to an ASU game either. I was supposed to go 2 weekends ago, but I had a wedding I had to go to. But
oh, really?
It seems like last year I went to when they played at Oceanside, which was like basically like a beer league rink, and they're playing D1 hockey. So I can't even imagine what that experience is like. So I'm excited to get to one of those, or both of those. I'll definitely go when the Caps are in town. I usually see every time they come out, I go watch the Caps play.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm so curious what that experience is like from a fan perspective, and a player's, right? I mean, I'm sure it's still fine. It's probably fun, but it's just different, right? Like when you're not in a full bowl, a big building, things just seem different on the ice, right? Even when you are, but it's the seats are maybe more vertical than they are laid out. You know, MSG is like pretty splayed out, so it just seems different than in a place that's, you know, maybe more like Montreal that goes a little bit more up and down. So I'm curious just what the optics are like there, as from a fan and a player perspective. So maybe you have to.
The things I've heard is that the ice is like top tier in the NHL. So I mean, I guess if you're playing there, that's the number one thing I would be hoping that's the best. So I guess if the ice is good, then I guess it doesn't really matter what the atmosphere is like.
Well, it's true, and I mean, I don't know how many. What's 5,000 fans? What they said they
maybe 5,500 maybe.
Yeah, I think typically those smaller buildings have better ice. I don't know what that is, if there's less humidity in the building. I don't really know, but yeah, I mean, if the ice is good, then who cares what the crowd's like? It's still probably a good game.
And on top of that too, like a lot of people are complaining about the ticket prices or whatever, and it's like $100 or $70. Like you get to pay $70 and watch the top athletes from 5 feet away, like Connor McDavid, Alex Ovechkin. You get to see them from a baseball throw away rather than in the nosebleeds.
Yeah, they can probably hear you too. Like,
yeah, oh, definitely, I'm sure.
You can go out there and heckle if you want. I feel like that's a pretty okay price for to go watch a NHL game, but I mean, everybody's different.
But you'll have to let me know when you guys are doing your lemonade stand punishment so we can promote it and get as many people there to help raise money or whatever that is.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everybody will be well aware of it. If I have to do it, then yeah, people will know. Otherwise, we're like I said, we're spread out all over Canada and the US, so we don't know exactly where the lemonade stand will be, but we'll
to a town near you.
It'll be coming to a town near you, hopefully, and we'll get it out there so everyone knows.
That's awesome. Well, before I let you go, do you want to promote your podcast a little bit for all the Caps fans?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I am doing a podcast called Alz Caps, ALZ Caps. I know, pretty clever. It's with Stephen Wino. We've been doing it for just over a year, I guess now. We try and get an episode out every week. We're fairly heavily Caps focused. You know, we try and do a bit of a recap of what the team has looked like over the last however many games, and try to have a guest on. I mean, when we can get one of the players to come on, we get them, a former player or somebody that I've played with maybe on a team that they're going to be playing soon, or one of the members of the media that follows the team a little bit more closely. So you get a little bit of a dose of Caps Talk, and then I do a segment at the end called Karl Stupid Questions that are, just kind of random fun questions. You get to get a little sneak peek into how some people tick with the way they answer the questions. And I don't know, it's fun. I'm not 100% sure how much longer we're going to do it. And we've been getting great feedback, but as you know, like if you want to put on a podcast and do a good job, it takes effort and time, right? You have to think about what you're going to talk about. And we both have so much going on that, it's hard sometimes to find the extra time to do the podcast, especially when after the trade deadline, we try and do, last year at least, we tried to do 2 episodes a week. And,
oh boy,
when at least Wino watches more of the games than I do. Like I don't usually ever watch until playoffs start. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to, give a very informed opinion some of the times, because I'm just like, honestly, I don't know what happened. Maybe this happened, or this place is tough to play. I don't know. I'm just I'm just trying to survive. So anyways, it's fun because I enjoy podcasts, but it takes more effort than I have sometimes. So we're going to see if we can find a way to give maximum effort for enjoyment for everybody that's taking part and watch and listening to it. So we still have some kinks to work out.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, giving your time, an hour of your time on a Tuesday to come talk with us. I appreciate it, especially me as a Caps fan. I love watching you during your career and getting a chance to talk to you. It's been great. So best of luck with the podcast, with the golf game, and in fantasy football. We don't want you to come in last place.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That please, think about me most in that fantasy football. I do not want to lose. It's my own league. Like you can't lose your own league. So anyways, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on. It was fun.
Well, that was this episode of the Morning Skate. We'll check it out next time.